Hi, I'm Andrea. Welcome to my channel.
Hi, today I'm going to actually get the motherboard ready from the computer build video. This is the ASUS X670p Wi-Fi, and it's on the Prime range, not the Republic of Gamers or anything, so it's kind of the entry level sort of on the X670 chipset, but of course it's still a high-end motherboard, and of course it's not, it's kind of the first of the 670, but you get higher ones. This one's got Wi-Fi on it, so it's kind of up from the bottom, and so we're going to get we're going to fit the CPU, and we're going to fit the RAM and the solid state drive. Then we're going to fit it into the case just here. So we're going to of course we've got the back plate we have to fit in there as well, and so we're going to get on with this. Okay, so first of all I'm going to remove the plastic cover for the CPU, which is, if I can actually remove this, and we don't like to force these things, and it's kind of just little plastic, got little plastic lugs on the edge here, and you see that on there, and it's kind of a little cover there to stop the pins from getting damaged on the motherboard, so we'll put that to one side, and we'll fit the CPU. Of course we've got to make sure the CPU goes in the correct orientation, and on the motherboard there is, it looks like quite symmetrical on here, so I don't know whether you can see on here, so we're going to have to, there's a little arrow on this corner here, which we are going to obviously make sure the CPU is aligned with that. So hopefully there's a little arrow, as you can see on here, on the CPU. This is a Ryzen 5, and it's the 7000 series processor. So the 7600X this is. And if I, again, you don't like to, there's no pins on the CPU to bend, but it's a little bit held in there quite firmly, and you don't like to damage these things. You want them to be gentle, sort of thing, but you kind of sometimes being too gentle, and you can actually sort of do more damage sometimes. So there's a little on here. There's a little arrow which lines up with the arrow on the motherboard, and so we just drop that straight on here. Just carefully place that in there, and that just drops in. And it's kind of a little sort of ridges at the side which sort of stop the CPU from sliding about, and that's in there. Then we just close this, a bit like the Intel series. They've gone to this new type of socket, and that just clips in on here. So that's the CPU is now fitted, and hopefully I've fitted that correctly, and that's lined up. So we're going to get the heatsink ready, so I'll just put that to one side a minute. Now the heatsink here, oh actually, no, we don't want to put that to one side, do we? We actually want to, okay, be okay on the day. What we actually need to do for this particular cooler, this has these connections here, which they need to be raised up on these little kind of like stays, and we're actually going to remove the plastic here, the little sort of plastic sort of stays here, which hold, you kind of put a heatsink on here. I hate plastic lugs. I don't know why they put plastic lugs on motherboards, because I've seen them break in the past. So again, just sort of undo these on here, and there's a metal back plate behind on the motherboard, which is really good. So I like the fact that they have metal back plates, and so again that just comes out, and these just come out like that. There's kind of a, and I've got it on an anti-static mat, although I don't think there's any static on the actual table, but just in case. And so it's a little bit tight, some of these, and of course on here, yes, you've got the pins here, so we're going to actually fit sometimes you might want to fit the actual memory first. It depends on the heatsink, but this has got plenty of room on here. I don't know which way it goes, whether it goes that way or that way yet. I'll see which, because some of the AMD ones, for some reason, the fan seems to sometimes go kind of that way rather than that way, sort of thing. You think the front to back or back to front would be better, because you can have the airflows coming through the case better, but for some reason they sometimes, so we'll see on this one. But, so we'll just empty those out there, and so these here go on here. These are like sort of kind of plastic, I think they are. Yes, they go kind of one way round. You can't fit them, no, you can fit them one way, so they fit on here. Then you actually fit, now these ones, they go, I assume they go that way. That's to clear, these are so it actually clears the capacitors here, of course, and they go on there like that. And I think I'll just check that this little bar is over there. Yes, that's right, they go just go that way round. So this is the AM5 socket, but of course AM5 and AM4 seem to, I think they're the same here, I think. So again, we'll use the magnetic screwdriver on this one, and I'll start with the tricky one first over the capacitors. Again, I'm just putting it in gently at the moment, so it's not tight at the moment. It gives me a little bit of wiggle room, and then I can always tighten up later. Again, making sure it's not actually, no, it's plenty of room over the capacitors here, so that gives you, it's not actually encroaching on anything there. And again, just to start with, just don't need to tighten them up too tight to start with. You just want to make sure that they're sort of lined up first, and then once everything, you know, everything's lined up, then tighten it up. And just sort of a little bit there, and just want to make sure that that fits over here. That is, yeah, that lines up okay. So this is the bar which holds the heatsink, of course, in place. So that obviously goes this way. So it's kind of symmetrical. So it says "be quiet" on here. So we want that to be, I suppose, it's nice to have that so it's upright, sort of thing. So that will go that way on here, and this will go across. Now there is thermal paste on here applied, so that's okay. I know some people like to have their own, put their own thermal paste on, of course, and so that's yeah, it's up to you how you like. If you're going to overclock, of course, you might want to use some more specialist thermal paste, but then you'd probably be using a bigger heatsink or a water cooler probably than on here. But this is the Ryzen 5, so we're not going to be putting, I don't know, does that actually, probably looking at that, I'm not going to be able to, I don't know. Might be able to, no, probably not going to be able to get at these screws, so I'm going to have to tighten them up. Again, but this is what you need to make sure, first of all, that everything is kind of lined up. That actually, put that across there, make sure that, yeah, that is lined up correctly. And again, don't rush it, take your time. And just make sure again that it's tight, but not, you want to make sure it doesn't want to come loose, of course, with vibrations and things. I had that on Cooler Master V8 heatsink one time. That started to work loose, even though it seemed to be quite tight. It did work loose slightly, and there was a little bit of wiggle room, and the processor kept overheating. But I've since replaced it with a Fractal design water cooler. That's on the Ryzen, not the Ryzen, the FX processor, the 9590. So I keep looking down, of course. I've got to look at what I'm doing as well as look at you as well. So just making sure, I think, just tighten that a little bit more. I want to make sure it's tight, but not so cross thread it. You're frightened of cross threading things. Seems quite tight on there. Right, so we're going to actually take the cover off here, and of course make sure there's no plastic things. There's nothing on here, but sometimes you get like plastic strips, and same on your motherboard here, you get plastic strips. Now, can I, that will go that way. So yes, I can get at the actual solid state drive there. So I'll take this off. This is always the, once you think, point of no return sort of thing when you put this on. And oops, it's on quite stiff there. And right, so make sure that's the right way, and we'll also fit that. It's got like little grooves here, so you want to make sure that is even on here, of course. And does that go? That looks symmetrical. Oops, well, it was. So yeah, there it is. So that's that looks symmetrical on here. I don't know, can you actually? No, you can sort of, you can misalign it, I think. So you've got to be careful. So again, each heatsink has its own kind of ways of fitting. This one is again quite secure by the looks of it. So again, actually, yes, it's got. Make sure it's lined up on here. So that is lined up. Right, so we now have to put in. So let me try to find. Just pause a minute and there we are. We've found the ones. It's always a good idea to. I should really have things laid out a bit more. I'd not quite make a really good Blue Peter presenter, but I don't know. Maybe I'll do the here's one I made earlier at the end, and or at the beginning. And anyway, so I'm going to actually put that on there. Not going through. Just do that lightly to start with, and same with this side at the back here. Going through. I thought they made the screws a little bit longer. Just need to actually that's right. It's sort of, I suppose it's made so it kind of like bends a bit to give a sort of tension, so that's and do just a little bit each side. Again, you want to make sure it's secure. I think these actually sort of, in a way, they kind of a little bit flex in them, so they bend up a bit. And so it's quite good really, because it kind of makes it a good contact with the processor, so you get the maximum transfer of heat into the heatsink on here. I'll just try this screwdriver here. Again, I was frightened of cross-threading. Actually, that one's tightening up quite tight there. Yeah, that one's tightening up there. Again, I thought for the moment it might have cross-threaded, but no, it hasn't. So that's it is tight. So again, you just carefully do this until you're sure that you've got it tight on here. So that's sort of tight on there. And again, of course, you can put too much or too little thermal paste on something. This is already pre-applied, but if you're putting thermal paste on yourself, you just want to do generally about, say, about a pea-size blob in the middle usually, and then it goes and spreads out across the processor. Some people think, oh, get a credit card or something and wipe it across, but really just a little blob in the middle, and then it will spread out, because the pressure will actually spread it all out across the processor surface and heatsink surface contact. So right, so we've got that fitted, and you can actually, yes, you can lift that up here, because that is very secure on here. It's connected to a metal plate behind, so you're not risking of damaging anything when you pick it up, which is handy for when you're putting in. If you're connected to these plastic lugs, it would actually probably not quite such a good idea to lift with a heatsink. So a metal all metal here makes it very secure. So what we're going to actually do, we've got enough room here to put the solid state drive in here. Now we've got the fan here, so this kind of sucks in air, kind of blows air, so it blows it that way. So again, we can just do possibly this side by the looks of it, because I think this side there's touching, well, very close to the this unit here on this side. So of course we don't want the air to go backwards, we want the air to go this way. If you're going to put it on this side, have a dual, you'd put it so the fan is kind of, the back of the fan faces that way, so you get the airflow coming through this way on here. And so we've got, this is the CPU connector here, so that goes onto here. So that, I'll fit that on there, and we've got these, again I did put them down to one side, here we are, and we've got these connectors here, these little things. I think this provides 4, so do we need 4 or do we need 2? So again, how these go on. Right, so I'll make sure that is over that way, and this goes, how does this actually go in? I think I've got it sussed, I think. So this is a little kind of a plug here, and this will go into, well, it should go into the screw holes. Are they both the same? No. So why they fit, according to the instructions, they fit on here, but it kind of does go this way. I got it right in the first place. So pulls in like that, and this one again goes in. That's it, and you pull that in. I see, that's right. I thought for the moment that kind of bit here would fit kind of that way around, but it doesn't. It actually fits here you pull these back on the side here, and then they just fit into the vents here, which is quite good. I mean, it saves using screws. Of course, you can use long screws going through there, of course, which go into your fan, of course. But that's kind of like a quick release thing. So we'll fit the CPU fan header, which goes into CPU optional CPU. CPU fan is this one. It's just like this motherboard has got basically, you see on here, you've actually got fan headers here and here, and of course there are other fan headers, one there as well. So again, so this one, go into this, make sure we've got it on the right one. The CPU. Again, always worth studying, make sure. Normally it's quite obvious. Yes, one's a pump, one's the CPU fan. So I suppose if you've got a water cooler, you put the pump on the other one. So that will go on there. Because basically putting it on the right connector will mean that the motherboard BIOS can control the speed of the fan, supposedly. So well, I assume it does. And so of course, obviously, if the system is getting more power going through it, this fan will speed up. And of course, if we've got it in the wrong one, it might flag up and tell us on there. So we'll put these ones back on here for now. And so that's the CPU done. And we're going to fit the hard drive next as well. Oh no, actually we'll fit the RAM on here, which if I find, where did I put the RAM? And again, the motherboard manual, which might help, and that's amazing. The RAM has just disappeared. I've lost the memory. I've lost my memory. Yeah, I think I've lost my memory. And so, where did I put it? Where did I put my memory? And so I've kind of, yes, certainly having a senior moment here, sort of. Yeah, so I'm kind of having a Windows user moment, to say. And, here we are. That's it. Yes, I've found it. I've got my memory back. And so yes, anyway, so we always have I'm being prepared, of course, and again, one for the bloopers, I suppose. Right, so I'll use the sorry, there it is. And just do this. Don't try this at home, kids. And again, so we'll get and again, it's kind of, you need to be a member of Mensa, don't you, to undo some of these things. And right, okay, so that's actually come out. So we're using, the memory is Kingston Fury Beast memory, and this runs, I think, about 6,000 megabytes or megabits a second. And this is sort of recommended for the Ryzen series, actually, so they say that's quite a good match. So again, obviously make sure your pin orientation is correct, and this motherboard will take it in the two grey slots here, which are on here you've got 4 memory slots, and we'll use these 2 grey ones here. These are the ones it recommends in the manual to use first, and then use the 2 black ones later. So always check your motherboard manual, which ones they go in, and again, just pull the clips. This has obviously got the clips on one side, and it just slots in the other side. So again, we'll put, make sure you've got it lined up correctly, because this little pin there has to line up with, that just pushes down here, and that just clips in. And same with this one, you just push it in, just push it down, so it's sort of straight, push it down both sides, and that clips in. There it is. So that's your RAM fitted. So it's quite simple really. I know obviously the experienced people amongst you will know how to do that and everything, but if you're a first time builder and you're just getting into doing things, again, you know, take your time, don't rush. There's no rush. You don't have to immediately get the computer up and running straight away. So anyway, right, we're going to actually now undo, I've got the right screwdriver. We're going to take off these screws here. Okay, this one's not a magnetic screwdriver, and so this is the heatsink here coming out. And do that one. Sometimes it might. So that comes out here. So that is basically like heatsink, and it's got under here like a thermal pad thing here, which again you can just unpeel that and then stick that just fits over the top on here to keep the drive running at a good temperature. And again, right, so back again, the battery ran out on the camera, so we kind of missed the bits where I was just actually finally fitting the solid state drive, but I've now fitted that in there, and it just basically just goes into the slot like your memory, and then it just goes down a little plastic clip which you move, and that holds it, keeps it flat, and then you put the heatsink and heatsink back on there. So we've got basically the motherboard is now actually ready to go into the tower case. We're not fitting any other drives here. Obviously we're going to fit the graphics card into the case. So right, so we're going to actually now fit this board into here, and I think we've got everything in place. We've got the CPU fan connected, memory is in here, and the solid state drive. So we've got all the tricky bits kind of done on here. Right, so I'll just move this out of the way, and we'll get like a little bit of space and get rid of all the rubbish over here. And of course I've got, I think also with this case there only seems to be a power switch. There doesn't seem to be any LED lights. There's an audio connector as well for the motherboard, but so it kind of makes it a little bit simpler in some ways, because on your motherboard you do have these headers here, of course, and for things like your hard drive lights, your power switch, reset switch. There doesn't seem to be a reset switch on here. I thought there was, but it's actually, the switch is actually for the colours of the fans. So again, we don't know what is going to happen on here. So basically, this here gets heavier when you get more components in, and make sure that these cables are out of the way at the back here first of all, which kind of like, and so we're going to actually put in the back plate on here, because this back plate again looks a bit more traditional. Some of them have had like padding and stuff on the back on here. So again, we'll go around here. So you basically obviously make sure it's lined up correctly with your back of your motherboard. Of course, that goes that way, and this looks like there's a switch there, whether that's a reset switch or something, I don't know. So I don't want to press that yet and find out. Something horrible might happen. And again, just push that in here, and it should just push in. Sometimes they go in nice, other times they don't. Depends on the case, and it depends on the the back plate. So that's going in there, so you can have a good laugh while I say, no, you're doing it wrong. Shouldn't do it that way. It should just clip in there. Oh, getting. This is usually where you end up cutting yourself or something, so you make a sacrifice to the blood god. And if you do that, you know you made a good job. And is that going in there? No, it's not going in. For some reason, it doesn't want to go in. Sometimes they say, oh yes, put them in that way. Now it's clipped in there. That's it. That's clipped in. Yeah, that's in now. It's solid. Yeah, you have to give it a little bit of a force to go in because it's it just sort of clips in, which is quite good. It holds in solidly because obviously you don't want to be pushing that in when you've got the motherboard in place. You don't want to be pushing in connectors and then finally you're pushing your back plate behind. So I'm checking the actual on here. Oops. Just check the alignment of these on here. They look like they're lined up. That middle one here has got kind of, just like you don't put a screw in there, it's got a kind of a lug sticking up just to hold the motherboard in place rather than actually put a screw in to hold it in. So again, it's worth checking. So which actually works quite well because that's the one here, I think. Yes, it is. Yes, that's that one. So again, just want to check that we've got these. Again, all the cables are coming out here. So we don't want to trap the cables on here. I'll do that for now. And right, so we're going to actually put in, lift that up here. And there's plenty of space inside this case, lots of wiggle room. And we just want to, and again, I've got, hold that up, you can see that just fits in nicely, loads of space in there, and just lines up with the fan. Again, make sure you don't actually get any little kind of metal lugs going inside the USB ports or anything like that. This back plate looks quite well made, quite good for that. So, and again, make sure that you've got it lined up correctly. That little lug actually in the centre here has actually made the motherboard line up quite well. So again, now we want to make sure these cables are trapped. For some reason, as I say, it's a trap. I've heard that before. Well, that's it. Okay, so that'll be okay on there. That's in there. Right, so you probably can't see at the moment why I actually screw this in place, but we've got the actual, again, I've got this rubbish everywhere, and again we've got these actual screws. They're actually quite short, they are actually, so again, the screwdrivers here, and so it doesn't matter though, as long as they hold it in place, that's okay. I usually start with the middle here, just put screw, and then only do it sort of kind of like almost like you know, kind of loose-ish, and start one in the middle again here. Again, just do it sort of, don't tighten it yet because you need to make sure that all the screws go in, and you don't want to have one that's slightly out of alignment. And again, just go into the middle here because you just have to slightly just give yourself a little bit of room there to actually, just in case you need to slightly move the motherboard a little bit. Again, use the middle connections. Then I was kind of do it in a cross really sort of thing, so you kind of do the middle screws that way and the middle screws that way, and then do the corners, and basically, like a lot of things, you should sort of tighten from the middle outwards. The opposite corner here. I know you can't see what I'm putting, where I'm putting the screws in, and again, just do it sort of just gently. Then you go round, making sure that they're tighter. So I've actually, oh yes, I've used them all up, so I've not got one left over, which is good. Although usually, worryingly, I've left a screw somewhere where it's do damage. Of course, you don't want the screws to actually fall out of the motherboard, of course, because again, I've seen that happen before. Screws come loose. Fortunately, I've not seen a motherboard fry, but you get a little screw on some metal circuitry, that could blow something, and not very good. So again, make sure the board is okay on here. And again, don't over tighten, just enough to, I know when I did my, I made my kit car, I think in the manual there it was telling you how to tighten certain bolts and things, and you tighten them so they, kind of, it's relatively tight, but then you just do 1/2 a turn sort of thing, and of course, and again, a friend of mine, friend's dad used to tell me, he was a mechanic, he used to say you can tell how tight usually a screw or a bolt should be by the size of it, of course, and if it's the larger it is, of course, the tighter it needs to be, but of course those only small screws like this, they don't need to be hugely tight. I've not known anybody crack a motherboard, but I've no doubt that I expect somebody has out there. Let me know in the comments if you have, or if you know somebody who has, and you get the kind of a, I just hope I'm not the first one. And again, just do the edges here. And so that is just checking, and just go around, just make sure, you don't need to sort of go over tighten, just make sure you just double check that all the screws are there. So basically there's 8 screws in this board, but it's 9 natural standoffs. The middle standoff has got a kind of a little bit that sticks up, which you don't put a screw in, but it just kind of holds it in place. It helps line up the motherboard, which is quite good, and so that's that. And we've now got, so I'm not going to now pick this up with the heatsink and fan, I don't want to break the board, but basically we now have, if I can fit that in, see that in there? So we now have this nicely in place, or it should actually be this way around, like that. So it's getting heavier now, of course. And so basically you're almost there with everything. You've got the drives fitted at the back, so if I can actually move that around. Yesterday or the earlier video, I actually fitted the solid state drive on this side. I've actually now moved it across to here, mainly because the power connectors, I'm sharing this one with the optical drive, and having the power connector for this hard drive on its own connector, so I can fit 3 cables to fit other drives on there, sort of thing. But of course, might need to find that I've got this, may need to get sort of extenders. I've got the Molex here, so you can always do a Molex to SATA cable you can put on there if you want to put more SATA drives up here, and so on. And of course, this power unit has got enough connectors for what we want, but it's got all the right motherboard connectors and everything on here. But of course, we've not actually got all the it's got sort of basically 2 cables with SATA connectors on. Some power units can have 3 cables I've seen with SATA connectors on, as well as the Molex one as well, which can be handy, of course. But with SATA, I suppose, kind of in a way on its way out, because the NVMe drives are kind of going to be taking over eventually. I suppose they seem to cut down. Some of the high-end motherboards only have 4 SATA ports on them, and so this one, we've got this, that's why we've got this board, because it's got 6 SATA ports on here. So we're going to connect the SATA cables on here. We've actually only got 2 cables that came with the board, which is a bit stingy really. You think you could have put 4 in, couldn't you? I mean, come on, ASUS, you could put 4 cables in. I mean, it's penny pinching really. I mean, the cost of the board, I mean, it's higher than what a high-end board was a few years ago, sort of thing. So, and you used to get at least 4 of these. So, but anyway, I've got some cables somewhere lurking around. So we're going to, obviously, you've got to tidy up all these cables. It's actually quite neat here, because you've got no other intrusions here. Once the graphics card's in place as well, but I'm going to fit the other kind of little bits in, the other little cables in first, then I'll fit the graphics card. So this kind of like, hopefully you'll see it eventually working in probably maybe the next video. Might be switching it on the moment of truth, so it all works. So again, I'm going to tidy up some of these cables. Not going to really sort of bore you with all that, because I mean that's a little bit tedious, and it's going to make a really long video doing that. So anyway, so thank you all for watching this, and I hope this has been informative and helpful to some of you out there, and especially people who are just starting out building computers. So of course, the more experienced people will think, oh no, you're doing that wrong. So let me know in the comments again if you think I've not done things correctly, or you think I could have done things better, or anything like that. Because again, I'm sort of this is the first time I've built one in this sort of case. I've did a fractal design for a friend about 4 years ago now, I think that was. I think before 2020, and that was again similar size case, and that had the drives were in this here sort of thing. So they were kind of and you've got quite a few drives in there. But anyway, so. But thank you all anyway for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe, and see you all very soon. Okay, bye.
Thank you all for watching today's video. I hope you've really enjoyed it. Please remember to like and subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you want to get notifications for future videos.